Hi, folks. This is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. You know, in my last report, I talked about the walleye fishing that my buddy Will Clute was doing. But here's something he told me that I was shocked. He said that a month ago, he was catching a number of his bass and walleyes on shiners. And I'm like, Will, I fished with you pretty much your whole life for many, many years. And you've helped me do TV shows, radio shows, everything that I've done. You've been there to assist me. And never once have I ever seen you use artificial bait. He said, well, I normally didn't. But there's a certain time of the year where bass in particular will really orient towards shiners. And I said, but Will, aren't you killing the fish when you're using shiners? Aren't they swallowing it? He says, you could if you didn't do it the way I'm doing it. So he explained it. What he's doing is he's using shiners as a drop shot. In other words, he's tying a little hook like you would with all the famous drop shot baits, tying the hook directly to the line and fishing it in the same manner. But for some reason, the shiners work incredibly. Then let's move ahead a bit. But just know that if you fish them in the traditional way you will have a lot of fish swallowing the hook. And it's not what our whole fishery is about. But the second thing that I found very interesting is that Will told me on days with bluebird skies, high pressure, and no wind. In other words, those bright days when I was a kid, everybody warned me wasn't the good fishing days. On the St. Lawrence River in the summer, the smallmouth experts actually say that bright sunny days are the best for smallmouth. That's when the fishing really gets hot. But let's get back to the late fishing. Will told me that on those days, those fish would really react to shiners. And I'm overwhelmed with this. However, he said then when it gets cloudier, it gets moister and so forth, then the shiners don't work as well. And as it got later in the season, they didn't work as well. It brings up another subject that I wanted to really talk to you all about, and that is fishing with live bait as bad as we've made it out to be over the last decade or so, when with all tournaments, live minnows it's not legal to use any live bait. And there's a reason for that, because they're trying to protect the fishery. But is it that unsportsmanlike to use live bait? And I want to take you back to when I was a kid, and I first started fishing as a little kid, and a lot of times I was left to my own self, to my own discoveries. I didn't have somebody telling me what to do. I had to learn it. And I learned how to fish basically with live bait. And as time went on, I was still a kid, but as I got to be an older kid and thought that I knew so much about fishing, I was able to fly fish. My dad taught me all about fly fishing, and I loved it. And I was able to use spinners and spoons, and I had my favorite ones, and CP swings and MEP spinners were really popular. And even the color of the blade, whether it was copper or silver or gold, made a big difference. And I learned all that. And I learned how to use spoons and what speed to fish them. But live bait was a very special joy for me. I learned how to use the currents and uncover rocks and get crayfish, or go out in the garden, and I knew which type of worms worked the best and how to hook them with little bitty hooks and use them and so that they drifted down. I didn't just take a big sinker out and throw it out and stick my rod in a wooden post on the bank and fish. And that's okay too, because a lot of people love to do that. But what I'm trying to say is there's a certain art and there's a certain grace and, above all, a naturalness to fishing with live bait. And if you enjoy that, and if you can get past thinking that you're not being a good sportsman, because if you do all the other things, if you use circle hooks, if you learn to use delicate tackle where you can feel the little tap of the strike, and so you can set the hook before the fish does engulf it, then you're probably being just as sporty as you are if you go out there with a lure with 3 sets of treble hooks on it and hooking the fish in a number of places and putting all kinds of wounds in them. I mean, all kinds of things are possible. And I'm not trying to be extreme, and I'm not trying to take a stand either way. But I am saying that using live bait may not be the bad thing that we all think. And maybe it can afford you some fun and some more fish that you might not have caught with anything else. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.